What's going on? It's Gregory here with the Road Trip Podcast, and I have a very special guest today. That is Tucker Max. He is the author of, several bestseller books, including "I Hope to Serve Beer in Hell," "Assholes Finish First," and "Hilarity Ensues." He actually single-handedly invented the frat tire series or frat tire genre of writing. And you might be wondering, why am I having Tucker Max on the podcast? Well, really, over the years, kind of Kinobody and Road Trip has evolved to be more than just fitness and nutrition. Really, it's about using fitness and nutrition to enhance your life, enrich your life, and live the life of your dreams. And Tucker's done some amazing stuff. He's, since his earlier books, and he's kind of evolved in many ways. He's now running the Mating Grounds podcast, which is like an evidence-based podcast on, attraction and dating and relationships, and it's very cool stuff. So we're going to be talking to Tucker about relationships, dating, why every guy should train in martial arts, at least for some point of your life, and what that will give you, why getting into real fights is stupid, and how to avoid them without looking like a wimp. These are valuable skills. Moreover, we're going to talk about how to deal with people in authority, how to deal with cops. I mean, Tucker probably should have gotten arrested about 50 times, but he's been pretty scotch-free. And that's all in his ability to deal with cops. He's going to teach us that. He's going to teach us those skills. He's done some amazing stuff. And so lastly, we're going to talk about confidence and what real confidence is, why you probably can't fake confidence, and how to build it. So without further ado, let's get down to brass tacks.
Well, actually, I would like to hear your thoughts on why you think girls like assholes, and if you even think that's a valid kind of question.
They don't like assholes.
Right.
I mean, they don't. It's just empirically untrue that women like assholes. Mm-hmm. Women like certain sets of behaviors that a lot of people like to label with the term asshole, or that that a lot of people don't understand, and so they'll call it, oh, well, this guy's an asshole, or this guy's this, or this guy's that. It's not. Here, let's start this way. So look, let me frame this. I think the way that you are looking to frame this. So I think most guys they think that or in the course of their dating life, they usually attempt two different approaches. They'll start off being a nice guy in quotes, right? And then what happens is the way that they actually act is not as a nice guy. They're usually pussies. Most guys think that being nice means being a doormat for other people, right? So it means not saying anything when they're uncomfortable, or not sort of asserting their own interests, or not in any way sort of advocating for themselves in any way, shape, or form, right? That's kind of how they read nice guy. And no one, especially women, is attracted to people who are essentially, however you want to frame it. You can frame it as a coward, as a doormat, as obsequious, but no one likes pushovers, right? Okay, so then what happens is those guys will then read some stupid shit online, like some awful pickup artist stuff, or they'll read my books, and because they don't really have any experience socially, they totally misunderstand what's going on, which happens all the time with my fans, I know, is they'll read it and they'll be like, oh, this guy gets drunk and yells curses at people, so that's what and he gets women, so that's what I should do. And there's a huge sort of subtext that they don't understand that I didn't put in the book because subtext isn't funny, and the books aren't meant to be dating guides. They're meant to be funny, right? And so then they'll go out and they'll be like, all right, I'm going to be a fucking asshole to girls or whatever, and then that doesn't work either, because no one likes brutish, ignorant assholes. And so then the dudes get very upset and frustrated because they don't know how to act. They tried being nice, and girls just had disdain for them or shit all over them, which is never fun. And they tried to act like guys they see doing well, like me, and they interpret that behavior as being sort of mean and shitty to people, and that doesn't work either, right? Or at the very least, the only place that that behavior works is with some really fucked up girls who have emotional problems, and then those girls are disasters. And you have one or two of those, and you're like, oh, this is horrible. And so then they don't know what to do, right? So really the best thing I would do, if your listeners want to really understand this, Dr. Jeff Miller and I did a great podcast about this called The Tender Defender. I think, it might not be up yet. That might be the last one. It might be up in a couple weeks. But basically, neither of those approaches are right. What women are looking for is a guy who is nice, yes, but nice is defined as empathetic, meaning that you can understand other people's emotions and you care about them. Altruistic, meaning that you're willing to do things for other people. And sort of a magnanimous leadership, I guess is a good way to sort of phrase it. Someone who is maybe, even if you're powerful, you don't lord it over people. You're very, you're kind is the right word, right? But at the same time, right, women definitely want those traits. In fact, cross-culturally, women uniformly rate the #1 most attractive trait in men is always either intelligence or kindness, and then the other one is usually #2. Kindness, right, which is a lot of guys think, oh, I don't understand, I'm kind to women. They're not actually kind. What they are is just pushovers, and passive is what they are. So on the other side, you need to also be very strong and assertive, and you need to be formidable, right? You need to be a guy that understands, first off, that respects himself. Like, if you, whatever things it is you like and you're into, and whatever you are someone, you take care of yourself, which doesn't mean you're a selfish shit. It means that your interests matter to you and you put them sort of at a high level, right? It also means that you're able to interact with the world in a way that the world does not push you over, which doesn't necessarily mean you have to be like The Rock or something. You don't have to be Hercules, but you have to be able to navigate situations and assert your own interests in a way that you are not a passive pushover, right? And that can range anywhere from sort of, being like if someone gives you the wrong order at Starbucks and you just take it and say, oh, I don't care, whatever, nothing ever goes right for me. It can range from there all the way up to knowing how to defend yourself in a fight, and everything in between, right? And we call it, those two traits in psychology are called agreeableness and assertiveness. And women don't want extremes at either. They want you to have a good dose of both, and they want you to switch between the two things. Great example. Let's just take a normal date, right? So let's say you meet a girl, whatever, on Tinder or in class or at CrossFit, doesn't really matter. And you guys get drinks, and you like her, so you guys decide to go to dinner, right? So you get to dinner, and you order, she orders, everything's going great. And the waiter comes along with the entrees, and he accidentally spills the entree onto her, right? Okay, there's a million ways to handle that. A guy who's nice in sort of the way that a lot of guys think of nice, which really is passive and weak and obsequious. What that guy will do is, like, he won't say anything. He'll kind of course he'll rush to like clean everything up, but then like won't say anything to the waiter or the restaurant, won't insist on any sort of recompense, he basically will just take this shit that rolled downhill to him and eat it, right? Whereas, like, the asshole will make a fucking scene. Be like, oh, you fucking idiot waiter, look at you, you dumped this fucking dish on her, and like, and a girl might like that at first, but then she's going to realize this guy is making a fucking scene. He just has an anger problem. He's just like using this as an excuse to shit on a waiter, right? Whereas a guy who handles the situation correctly is at first very empathetic and understanding to her situation, helps her clean up. Are you okay? Is everything all right? Then like addresses the situation confidently with the waiter. Hey man, can we, can you get club soda? Can you get some stuff to clean this up? Hey like whatever the girl's name is, Jill. Do you want to stay here? Do you want to go home? If her dress is ruined, like help her fix this situation, right? Then like you talk to the manager. Hey, this is like an expensive dress of hers. I'd really appreciate it if you guys like comped our meal or did something, whatever. Things like that. Very basic and simple, right? Become opportunities for you as a guy to be both kind and empathetic towards her, and assertive and I don't want to say masculine, assertive and effective to the world, right? So you can both, in a very effective way, get what you want out of the world without being an asshole, and still be kind and empathetic on the other side. Does that answer your sort of question?
Yes, that was beautifully put. And it's beautiful how you kind of said that transition people go through. They start being that quote-unquote nice guy, which is just what society defines as nice. And then they realize that doesn't work. Then they go from one polar extreme to the other polar extreme. And most people still don't find that middle ground, being kind of firm yet empathetic, which is cool. And so I guess that's just something that kind of takes experience and time to kind of find that middle ground, that balance.
It's more than just experience and time. I know a lot of guys in their 40s and 50s who still don't understand it and still bitter and angry. What you really need is a good model. Either someone to explain it to you. Well, actually, you need both. Someone to explain it to you and a good model. And right now, our society doesn't really have a lot of either. There's actually no one explaining this stuff in any way, shape, or form, which is why Dr. Miller and I are writing our book and why we have our podcast, which is very much about explaining these things to guys, because there's actually a ton of research about all of this stuff, and it's all very clear what women respond to on both an empirical level, like empirical scientific level, and also on an anecdotal level. It's very clear what they want, but no one has really explained it to guys in a way that they can understand and that they can sort of turn into sort of actionable information in their life. And then also, there aren't a lot of good models in our society. There aren't a lot of guys who I think exhibit both kindness and empathy and strength and assertiveness together. I think that's changing to some extent, but I think Hollywood doesn't really show a lot of guys like that. Mainstream media doesn't show a lot of guys like that. God knows people in academia don't show a lot of guys like that because they're all, there are very few men in academia. So it's like there just aren't a lot of models for guys to look at, right? And most parents don't know what they're talking about. All they do is repeat what they were told. They don't have any understanding or idea. And so guys are left with this shit pile that they're in. I had to figure this out on my own like most guys do. And but I think that's starting to change. People are starting to understand, especially younger guys, that like neither of these two extremes work, that there is a middle ground.
Right. That's a great point. Do you think there's a reason why this type of character hasn't really been embodied in Hollywood? Do you think it's just kind of not as juicy of a model, or?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of reasons why. Well, you know what's funny though? If you look at women's romance novels, you can see this embodied actually really well. If you look at, Dr. Miller and I call it the tender defender. Like Tinder, like T-E-N-D-E-R, not Tinder like the app. Tender like something soft, We call it tender defender because it's an idea that you're both strong and soft, right? But you're only that way at the appropriate times. If you look at, look at 50 Shades of Grey, right? Which is a fucking terrible book, and I hate that book so much because it's so poorly written. Everything about that book is like just awful to me. But 70 million women bought it, right? So clearly something in that book is resonating. Well, I think one of the things that resonates very clearly in that book is that there is a man who is extraordinarily effective and strong and assertive, but also very caring and very empathetic and very giving, right? The last thing I would tell guys to do is go be Christian Grey, But I would say that the thing you should emulate, or that you should take from that book, is that there are tens of millions of women around the world who want a man that is both very strong and very assertive and very masculine, but also very empathetic and very understanding and very compassionate, just at the right times.
Right. It's like the kind of Asian philosophy, that yin yang, that balance. And I find it, kind of fascinating, because you can give two people the same advice, but one person could be more on that left spectrum, more too nice, and he could be told to, to be more aggressive, be more assertive, and then on the other spectrum, that someone could get like the same advice and it could backfire. And so, yeah, it's interesting to try and figure out where you kind of land on that spectrum. And
there isn't a right place to land, dude. It depends on who and what you are. The point, every guy can be a Tinder defender. We're just all going to be different types. Like I'm a very sort of high energy, aggressive guy. So I have to focus more on being empathetic and compassionate, right? I have a lot of friends who are very empathetic and compassionate, so they have to focus a little bit more on being assertive and being sort of effective at their life. It's not, and even the ones that, I know guys that I do MMA with, right, which is a brutal physical sport, who are very, very emotionally sensitive and very compassionate and whatever. And we kind of train the same. We're on the same mats. A lot of those guys whip my ass, right? But when we get off the mats, that we're very different people in the world. And those guys are, they do great. They have the one I'm specifically thinking of is a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. He's God, he's made so much fucking money. He's like kind of a startup investor, and he's done some other things that are really cool and really smart. He's a guy that a lot of people would look at if they don't know him and think, wow, he's like kind of passive and kind of a pussy and kind of a pushover. But the reality is he's very, very tough and very strong. He's just he's strong and tough in the ways that matter, right? Whereas a lot of people would look at me and think, oh, well, he's like on this other extreme. No, we're both Tinder defenders. We just are very different types of guys who express our assertiveness and agreeableness in different ways, and then we ended up with different types of women. His wife is beautiful and amazing, but very, very different than the woman I'm with, who's also beautiful and amazing. They're just different, The point is not to be a certain way. The point is to apply the right principles to your life so that you can be the best version of you possible.
Right, okay. That's cool. And how long have you been doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu for? That's something that I used to do a lot, and it actually tends to make you a lot more relaxed and chill from my experience, because most people get on the mats and they're so tense and they're like burning through so much energy, and then when they learn to just kind of chill, it's like this. It's just a cool metaphor, actually. But
I've been fighting for 7 years, doing MMA, Jiu-Jitsu, and Muay Thai for about 7 years. Oh no, it changed my life. Like I recommend it to almost every single guy I meet, both very naturally aggressive and very naturally passive. I can't think of anything better for a man to do than some type of real combat art. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is awesome. Muay Thai is awesome. MMA, which is sort of a combination of the two, is awesome. Any of those work. What I found is they actually made me far more, this is going to sound weird, not to you because you've trained, but to your listeners who haven't trained, they won't understand. It actually made me far less violent. It made me far less anxious. It made me and far more confident, and not just in physical sort of situations, right? Clearly, after you've trained what to do in a fight, you're going to be far more confident in some sort of violent situation, although it's not like I'm getting in fights very often. We live in America in the 21st century. Like, we might be in 2 fights in our whole life, and even those are probably going to be jokes for most people, right? It's not that you get better at fighting, even though you do. It's that being better at fighting, the process you have to go through to get good at fighting puts you in touch with a part of your soul that nothing else in modernity really touches. What it does, boiled down to its essence, MMA forces you to see who you are in a way nothing else does. Because fighting is truth. There is no bullshit on the mats. You know, like, you can't argue your way out of an armbar. Either you tap or you don't. And that forces you to really, first off, it makes you humble. Like, I'm not that good, man. I'm like a decent blue belt at Brazilian, like gi jiu-jitsu, and I'm an okay MMA fighter, like nothing like good at all. But people who come in who are untrained, I don't care how big and how strong they are, they have no shot against me or anyone who's trained because you don't know what to do. And so everyone, when they start, taps. And so it forces you into this, to understand both your limitations, it forces you into humility, it forces you to understand that the only way to get better at anything is to fail and then learn from your failures. And those are extraordinarily important lessons for guys at anything in life, not just fighting. And so it forced me to do that. But then also what fighting does is it tests you at a core primal level. You have a guy on top of you who's punching you, there's no argument, you know? Like, either you submit or you fight. And you know in your mind what happens. Like, I broke and I quit, and it's like, we've all been there. I mean, I'm sure you have too. Like, there have been times where guys just have me in awful situations, and if I really fought, I could probably get out of it, but I tapped, and it was like, I had to face the fact that I fucking quit, right? And it's like, man, there's no lying with that, man. There's no escape. You can't rationalize that shit. It's there. And then you kind of have to sit there and realize, all right, do I want to be a quitter or do I want to be a fighter? Because the point is not whether you win or lose. There is no winning or losing in jiu-jitsu, at least in training. There's only winning and learning. And so that's one of those things where I remember the first time it ever happened to me, I was like, fuck, man, I didn't think I was a quitter. But the fact is I just fucking quit. Like, tapping is fine. If someone gets you in a bad position, you tap, no shame in that. But I wasn't. I didn't need to tap yet. I was just really aggravated, and I just quit. And it was like, all right, so then I realized I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm not going to be a quitter. And that was like, man, that was a turning point in my life in a lot of ways, because that's one of those things where it gives you the measure of who you are as a man. And it doesn't matter how good. This is what so many people don't understand. They think, oh, man, I'm going to go in there and I'm going to suck at fighting. Yes, you're right, you will suck, because everyone sucks when they start. The point is not do you suck or not. The point is what do you do when you get there, right? Do you try hard? Do you learn? Do you improve? And if you do, you're going to love it. It doesn't matter if you're the worst dude on the mat. The place I train is full of, like, you wouldn't believe, man. We have Tim Kennedy trains there. Yves Edwards, like all these, like, some world-class fighters, man. I'm like probably in the bottom 25%, but I fucking love it. I love it. I don't feel like a failure any day that I'm there, because every day I go in and I compete and I give it my best, and I know where I stand, and it's like, all right, that's where I am. Objectively, that's what my skill level is, and tomorrow I'm going to try and be there, and the next day I'm going to try and be there, and the next day I'm going to try and be there, and that's life. That's a metaphor for life, is understanding you get a little bit better each day, and it takes hard work and honesty with yourself. Yeah, I can't recommend fighting enough, but not enough dudes do it, man. I wish there was a way to make people understand this.
Yeah, I remember when, like, Ong Back and Never Back Down came out. Everyone in my, like, all my friends were, like, getting into martial arts, but that only lasts a little while. It's only a few people that really stick through it and fight it, because it's one of those things that can be challenging compared to working out, because not only are you, like, you're tired, your muscles are strained, but you're getting put in, like, locks, or you're getting hit, and so it's like nothing really compares to it. I actually haven't done it in a while, but I'm going to get back into it, because it is very pure and raw, and like you said earlier, it's something that completely carries over to life. In that,
in every way, man. I've seen so many guys in our gym come through who were fucking shitbirds, and a year later they're carved out of iron, and not just physically, like in their lives. It carries over in their lives, and they went from, barbacks, shitty, out of shape barbacks, to now guys running their own business, or now managers of where they used to work, or now they, whatever. There's a million ways it translates. I've seen it happen over and over and over, and it's really amazing, man. It changed my life. It gives you confidence that you can't buy, you can't fake. Confidence on the mat is unlike any other confidence. You know what it's like, man? It's like the Force, like in Star Wars. Once you know how to fight, it's like the Force, because it goes with you everywhere you go. And as you deal with the world, you're now not afraid anymore, because no matter what happens, you can handle it. Dude, I am one of the worst fighters in my gym, but that doesn't mean anything. Because in the real world, I know any sort of shit that goes down, I can handle. I may even get my ass kicked, but I know I can handle it. So it's like, I know what it's like to be punched. I know what it means if someone's going to hit me with a chair. I know what it means to be kicked in the fucking face. I know what I do if someone puts me in a chokehold. There's no fear of ambiguity or uncertainty around that in my life. And so it's like, it's so easy for me to deal with stressful situations now, because it's like, okay, like I got no problem with it. Like it's easy. Not because like I'm waiting to fight the person, far less. Because like the idea that I would get in a fight over this is ridiculous. I know what a fight is like, and a fight's not an argument in a bar. A fight's not a waiter spilling something. Like, that's nonsense, right? So you're able to have this emotional distance from things that is just profoundly settling and profoundly confidence building. So many people don't understand. There's only one way to build confidence, and that's demonstrated performance, right? I am confident at writing because I have written amazing shit before. And I got to where I could write amazing shit because I wrote shit at first and I kept practicing. I'm confident in social situations because I'm good socially, but also I have a deeper confidence now that I didn't have 10 years ago because I have no physical sort of fears or anxieties. People don't realize humans are not like apes, we are apes. And whenever we're in physical proximity, the unconsciously, it's the way our minds work, that we sort of assess size, we assess threat. Every time you see another guy, you do a threat assessment, and it's deep and unconscious, but it's there. And that's why so many smaller guys or guys who are untrained are anxious, is because you walk through a world where everything is an actual threat. You can rationalize in your head that it's not a threat, but it's a threat. Your unconscious knows. That's why, like, big guys and guys who are trained seem so calm and tend to be far more confident, because they are. Because they know they can handle those threats. It's not that the threats are gone, it's that they can handle it. And I know it sounds kind of crazy in 21st century America to talk about threats, but our brains are evolved for a different world than the one we live in.
Right, yeah, that brings me right back to high school when I first was compelled to learn how to fight. High school is almost like magnified because, as you're an adult, everyone's a little bit more well behaved. But in high school, people will push you, or there'll be fights and stuff. And so when you're like the smallest guy, it sucks. And so you want to learn how to handle yourself, and that gives you so much confidence. So what drew you to get into the combative sports? Because that was only 7 years ago, so that was in your...
I played sports in high school, so I thought I was tough. I wasn't tough, but every high school kid thinks playing sports makes you tough. But I played football, baseball, basketball, and soccer, so it was like I thought I was tough. So I didn't think I needed combative sports. I got into it when I was living in LA because I hated dealing with the entertainment business, and I was angry all the time. And one of my friends, he was doing jiu-jitsu for a long time. He's like, dude, you should try Brazilian jiu-jitsu. And I remember, I had the same story everyone who started Brazilian jiu-jitsu does. I went in, and I'm like, okay, this looks like just dudes rolling around trying to make out. Like, obviously I can whip these dudes' ass. and And then, of course, like, you know, I got on the mat and started rolling, and like it was the worst experience of my entire life. These little fucking dudes were just destroying me in the most humiliating ways possible.
Oh,
And it was like the harder I tried, the worse it got. And it really pissed me off. And so for the first couple days, first couple weeks, it was more like, I'm going to show these fucking guys, which of course is ridiculous. Eventually you realize that that's nonsense, and then you kind of calm down and you start learning. But the only problem I had with the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and I love Jiu-Jitsu, is just that so many moves, I was like, what if I punch you in the fucking face right now, dude? Like, oh, well, Jiu-Jitsu is like non-striking art. I'm like, right, but what if I punch you in the, like, I'm not going to, but I'm saying, like, in my mind, combatives had to be really real-world applicable, at least at the time. So they were all like, you need to do MMA. You need to go to the MMA class. So I started doing MMA, and I fucking fell in love with MMA because there is no hiding in MMA. As much as I love jiu-jitsu, you can kind of hide a little bit physically and aggressively. MMA is like, there's no hiding. It's like, I mean, it is straight up, it's basically a well-trained, well-choreographed street fight. And I loved it. And because I'm a very assertive, aggressive guy, and it just channeled my energy in a way that allowed me to really kind of use it and learn whatever. And what was cool about it was all the guys in it were so cool. Like everyone, even the ones who were whipping my ass, were helping me, and everyone's supportive, and everyone's sort of like on your side. It's not a thug environment that like a lot of people think. It's a very supportive, it's a very safe place for men to be masculine and to fail without shame, humiliation, or embarrassment. It's, to put it frankly, that's really what it is. And I mean, I just loved it, man. I loved everything about it. And then once I started doing it 3-6 months, then I understood, wow, there's a huge, not only is this very mentally complex, I mean, all fighting arts, jiu-jitsu, Muay Thai, which is, for your listeners who don't know, Muay Thai is Thai boxing, which is like punching elbows, knees, legs. It's basically, you can strike with anything on your body for the most part. And MMA is essentially just Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu plus Muay Thai combined. So you're doing sort of all fighting, ground fighting, standing, etc. UFC, cage fighting. I mean, I'm sure at this point everyone knows what that is. Mm-hmm. But so like I had no idea how cognitively taxing it is. It's really complex, and it's really hard, and it's really cerebral. And stupid people fail at MMA. Even the really strong, really athletic, stupid people get fucked up by the smart people. So that was appealing to me. But then also the spiritual side took me a while to understand, but it really appealed to me. It really, man, it gave me a confidence that you just can't get anywhere else. Confidence has to be earned. And it's earned in a place where you can fail. And you can fucking fail at fighting. In fact, that's all you do for the first 6 months is fail. And so as you get better, that's real confidence. And it's confidence in an area that I thought I was confident before, but I wasn't actually. Because having the confidence of knowing you can handle yourself in a physical situation is just unlike any other confidence, man. A lot of guys think they're tough, and then shit happens, and they realize, wow, like, I don't know what to do. Mm-hmm. But, like, if you're trained at all, jiu-jitsu, MMA, Muay Thai, you know what to do. Krav Maga even is a pretty good sort of thing for guys, which is sort of Israeli self-defense art. Anything that's actual fighting, like Taekwondo, totally worthless. Pretty much all karate, totally worthless. Kung Fu, fucking joke. I'm talking about real shit where you really put your hands on other people and you guys really fight. That just gives you a confidence you can't convince yourself of that stuff. And if you do, then what happens? You can convince yourself you're tough, right? And then you come in, you get on the mats, and you get fucked up, and you're like, okay, well, like that. I guess I wasn't that tough.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm glad you said that about, because I wanted to talk about confidence a bit, and you brought up, and yet you said that perfectly. Confidence has to be earned, and I guess fighting is the best place to start talking about confidence, because if you fake your confidence, you're getting fucked. There's no question about it.
You can fake confidence for a little while. Okay. For a little while. It can work. Like, I can go into a bar and pretend, anyone can do that, right? But fake confidence doesn't last in the long term. It doesn't actually, the saying "fake it till you make it" it's true and it's untrue. It's true in the sense that in very short-term bursts, for specific applications, it can work and help you. But for long-term strategy in life, it just doesn't work empirically. The evidence is very clear. Fake it till you make it doesn't work.
Okay. What would be like an example where where it would be useful in a short-term boost? I guess if you want to kind of put yourself into a situation to get ahead or learn something, and so you don't have to fake it anymore.
Well, okay. A great example. Let's say that you're trying. Let's say you're trying to do let's say you're a salesman, and you need a really big sale. Like, objectively, you really do need this really big sale. A good thing to do going into like the sort of customer meeting to do the sale is to pretend like you don't need the sale, right? Pretend like either you've already got it or you don't need it, because that will calm you down. It'll make you less anxious, and all the sort of nonverbal sort of things going on in that sales meeting, which is really how most of the decision is going to be made on that sale. That helps you on all those sort of things. So, like, that's an idea where if you don't have to like be a crazy person and actually think you've already made the sale, but just kind of convince yourself you don't need it or you've already made the sale or both, then that will have short-term, tangible, positive impact on how you do in the sales meeting, right? Whereas if you have that feeling throughout your sales career, you're going to be a terrible salesman. Like, if at all times you think you don't need the sale and you've already made the sale, you're not going to do anything. You're going to be a fucking disaster, right? So that's the difference between like fake it till you make it versus actual fake it till you make it will get you started or will lower your anxiety. Fake it till you make it is not going to help you do the things necessary to build confidence, because confidence comes from demonstrated performance. I can't say this enough. Confidence is so simple, and so many guys want to make it so complicated. If you want to be confident at something, whatever it is, talking to girls, let's take that as an example. There is one fucking way to be confident with girls. Talk to girls. It sounds crazy, right? It sounds like a chicken or the egg problem in a way, because a lot of guys come to us on mating grounds and they're like, well, I want to get better at talking to girls, or I want to be more confident talking to women. Or, okay, great, go talk to women. But I'm afraid to talk to them. But the only way you can get better is to talk to them. So what you want to do, there is a solution, though. The solution is very simple. Think up the lowest stakes, safest way in your mind you can talk to a woman. Like, maybe you go talk to grandma, right? Because grandma, like, nothing is at stake with grandma, right? Go talk to grandma for 3 fucking hours. You're going to feel a little bit better. Okay, a little bit more confident. Why? Because you now have experience and practice talking to women. Now, go talk to an old lady you don't know. Sounds like, at first I'm like, I don't know. There are literally organizations in every city who are desperately looking for young people to go hang out with old people who are alone and unhappy. It sounds nuts, right? But it's actually true. And you can go to an old person home, or there's a million places to volunteer, to spend all day talking to old women. You're not going to get any dates that way, obviously. And it's like, but if you can talk to old women, then you can talk to, let's say, a random woman. So now go from talking to old women to walk around the mall and go into every store and talk to the clerk there. Don't hit on her. Don't like try and flirt with her. Just talk to her. Like, ask her reasonable questions. Walk into whatever the fuck, Macy's, and the perfume counter, not perfume, that's weird, but the whatever, cologne counter, right? There's probably a woman there. Talk to her about the colognes. Talk to her about different things. Just talk to her like a person. Do that all fucking week, right? Spend all your fucking time. Then, now you can talk to women, right? So now from there, you can go maybe to whatever social groups you're in, or whatever things, and you can talk to girls that are your age. Don't even start flirting with them yet. Just fucking talk to them. Talk to them exactly like you talk to grandma, and you talk to the random old ladies and the women in the fucking mall, and then all of a sudden it becomes much easier. And then why? Because you have experience, which leads you to confidence, right? That's a very simple, easy example for guys who have a lot of anxiety about talking to women. Start small and then just build up and up and up and up and up and up until you get to your goal.
Right. That's very cool, because I think most people just jump and look straight to like the long-term goal where they want to be, and like, how the hell do I ever get there?
Don't do that.
Yeah.
I mean, I started writing at 27. I didn't have a bestseller until I was 33 or 34. And I'm a fucking amazing writer who wrote amazing shit that invented a new sort of fucking genre, right? So I went fast, and it still took me 7 years or whatever, 6, 7 years, right? So like, the last thing you should ever do is think, okay, I want to have a girlfriend, so I need to go talk to the girl I want to date. Well, I mean, if you feel confident with that, go ahead, no problem, right? But if you have this is just an example. We're talking about, like, because there are plenty of guys out there who have a ton of anxiety about talking to women, right? And what they think is, oh, I have to learn about conversation. Yeah, I mean, I can explain everything you need to know about conversation in 5 fucking minutes. Conversation is not hard. It's very simple, actually. But you can't get over anxiety with information, usually. It takes practice. Information, practice combined is application. And you want to apply on the lowest possible levels that you can. I mean, think about it. Think of a world-class, a basketball player. LeBron James did not start off in the fucking NBA. He started off in his backyard, and then he played in rec leagues, and then he played in AAU, and then high school, and then he didn't play in college. Most guys play in college, and then you get to the NBA. It's no fucking different, man. Whatever your problem is, whatever you're anxious about, whatever you're not confident about, start at the lowest level possible, and then just go up and up and up and up and up.
Perfect. And yeah, as you said, that applies to everything: fighting, work, and of course dating. And cool, man. Well, I guess we've been going for a while, so I mean we can wrap up. We've gone through the whole asshole kind of thing, what it actually takes to be good with women, how martial arts can like transform your life, and just to kind of touch base upon that one more time. I think it's really, because people have this stereotype that people are going to get into fighting, and then like they don't see how fighting can actually make you more calm, and I think you kind of mostly touched base.
Less violent. I'll tell you, there's actually been a really great study about this. A huge police department, I can't remember which one it was. It was somewhere like Reno, Nevada, or somewhere like that. They took half their officers and trained them extensively in sort of MMA combatives as applied to police, sort of stuff. And the other half they didn't really do anything with. They had the same training that you get in the police academy, which is basically nothing, right? And they, after a year, they looked at the stats, and the half that they had trained had 90% less complaints, 70% less violent use of force by the cop, and something like 50% less violent use of force against the cop. The ones that were trained had actually had. They didn't understand this at first. They thought for sure it would be the other side. No, it's because the trained cops are deeply secure. They were deeply secure with their abilities and their safety, so they didn't get anxious and they didn't escalate situations. Oh, and murders. I think they had something like 2/3 less murders. Like, or they had, shootings in the line of duty, right? Well, I guess it's debatable whether cops murder people or not now in the post-Ferguson, but these are like, whatever, like justifiable cop homicides, right? Like 2/3 less. And because the cops themselves were so confident in their abilities, they didn't feel the need to escalate stuff. Whereas if you're not confident, the way that you do is you escalate. Just think about someone you know in real life. It makes sense. The person who brags the most in your life is the one who's the least confident.
Right.
Same thing with physical force.
Right. Yeah. So in that example, it's like the martial arts or solid training gives you more physiological control over your emotions, so you're more chilled out. You can. Yeah.
Exactly. You're exactly right. It allows you to control your emotional states in high stress and allows you to understand when force needs to be escalated and when it doesn't. Because for the most part, you don't need to escalate force. It's very rare, actually, even for cops, for them to need to escalate to the use of to violent force or something like that. And that's what the study showed, is that the more you train cops how to control themselves and how to understand what actual violence is, and the more they feel confident being able to seize control of a situation if force needs to be applied, the less likely that force is going to be used. It's
Oh,
crazy, but it's absolutely true. It makes total sense once you actually understand it.
right. And do you have any tips for getting out of, like, let's say you're at a, 'cause you've been out a ton. Let's say you're at a bar and someone is trying to get in a fight with you, and like, do you have any tips for getting out of it? Obviously, being trained gives you that
Right.
confidence where less people look for the fight.
Dude, I'll tell you right now. Listen, I'm fully confident in my ability against anyone. I still wouldn't want to get in a bar fight
Mhm.
because you don't know who's gonna fucking hit you in the back of the head with a bottle, right? And like, or who has a fucking gun. I mean, I live in Texas. You don't know who has a fucking gun, right? And jujitsu, great. It doesn't stop bullets, man. So like no one's looking for fights, okay? If you do get in a fight, or if you do get in a violent confrontation, the best thing to do. Well, first off, it depends. So if this is escalated to the point where violence is inevitable, what I'm going to tell you is going to sound maybe weird. It's only going to sound weird to people who have never been in a violent situation. Get the fuck out of there. Like, if some dude pulls a knife or some dude wants to fight, I'm telling you the best thing to do is leave. And anyone who understands fighting will tell you the best self-defense is escape. Always, always, always. Because you don't fucking know what could happen. Doesn't matter how well trained you are. Doesn't matter what you know, because anything can happen, right? And in that a situation like that, you're playing with your fucking life. So don't fuck around, okay? Now that being said, if most situations are like don't escalate to that point, right? So how do you deal with a situation where someone maybe you're sort of in the precursor stages? Let's say on a 1 to 10 scale, you're at a 6 or a 7, where people are starting to get hot, but it's not inevitable that this is going to be a fight, right? The best thing you can do. So you should probably have people like self-defense experts on because there's a lot of things you can do. I'll tell you what I do all the time, and it works amazing. Is totally redirect. This takes a little bit of practice, but like, okay, so I'll give you an example. This is maybe 3 years ago at a bar. I was at a bar with some friends, and it wasn't even me. It was like one of my friends like bumped into a guy, like one of these stupid situations where there's just some dude out looking for a fight, right? And he decided it was going to be my buddy. So he's kind of in his face, whatever, and he's like, fucking push me, blah, 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 like total meathead. And what did I do? I went up to him. I said, I'm trying to remember what I said because it was totally random, but it was totally random for a reason. I think what I went up to him and said was, when I was 10, my grandmother would never let me eat SpaghettiOs. It made me so angry. Do you like SpaghettiOs or not? And he like looked at me like, what the fuck are you talking about, right? And it sounds crazy, but when you talk about something, someone's in a like a really heated situation, you talk about something that has nothing to do with what they're talking about in a very calm, like monotoned, almost statement way. It sort of short circuits their rage because it's processed in a different part of their brain. They almost don't know how they don't know what to do, right? They can't get angry at you because what you just said doesn't. You say it like very flat. Like I think I even said it flatter than that. Like my grandma wouldn't let me eat SpaghettiOs, and I really like SpaghettiOs, so I had to eat Captain Crunch instead. But Captain Crunch was pretty good too. Do you like Captain Crunch? It was something like that, right? Like it's really hard to go back to anger from this nonsense, right? And so he kind of like looked at me like, "What the fuck are you talking about, Captain Crunch?" And then I was like, yeah, maybe Captain Crunch is shitty. Cinnamon Toast Crunch is probably better. You're right. And he was like, he's like, you're a fucking idiot, and then like just turned like and walked away, right? Things like that really work well with really angry people who are angry for no reason, or they're just looking for a reason to fight. You got to know what you're doing, though. I would practice that. It just needs to be like just totally random, totally unrelated, like sort of factual statements that the person can understand, but has no basis in anything else they're saying, because they don't know how to respond to that. It's not provocation, right? But it's also not like if you go, hey, calm down. In a weird way, that's also provocation to a guy, right? So if you say something that's totally unrelated in no way, shape, or form, but it's something they understand, then they're like, they don't know how to process that, and it actually and then basically my buddy left like as I was saying that, and then he kind of turned around and he was gone, and the guy just got angry and stormed off somewhere else in the bar. Like, problem solved. Like, I know we don't learn this shit in jiu-jitsu or MMA. Like, I know this from something else, right? Like, but like that's actually how I usually deal with that. With things that are looking like they're headed towards a fight. If it's relatively low level, like sort of verbal sparring, then always what I do is turn it back on them. You know, like whatever someone's saying, like, I mean, you can read my books, man. All that shit's in there in the books. I was really good at that. I'm still really good at that. Whatever someone's saying, there's always a way to turn it back on them. You know, like, oh, what's wrong, pussy? You can't finish your drink or something like that. You could be like, I don't know, man. I come from that weird class of guys that we don't measure. What matters to us is our dick size, not how much alcohol we have in us, or just whatever. Anything like that at all, where you redirect it. Most people aren't very smart and aren't very good at comebacks, and so if you can have 2 or 3, then most people are like, they don't, And if you're good, like even the people like who have 2 or 3, like I can go all day, right? So it's just like whatever someone says, there's always a comeback where you take what they say and sort of go like with the opposite of it, right? Like, if they call out your manliness about something, then you can be like, oh, well, manliness, why are you so insecure that you think manliness is defined this way, right? Or if they make fun of something about you, then reverse it, like your height or whatever, then you can reverse it, and like make a joke about the joke, right? That's just basic verbal sparring. You can learn this in any improv class. There's tons of books about it. Watch any comedian deal with hecklers. Just go on YouTube and put up, heckler call out or something. So many great comedians. Comedians are amazing at this, about flipping things, right? It's not about what people are saying. It's about how you frame things in the conversation.
Right. Yeah. That's really cool. It seems like during that that point in time where it's before the fight, the main key is sort of being unreactive, because if someone like tells you something and like it hits you and you're like emotionally reactive, that's like gonna start to bring the emotional energy into more of a confrontation. And as you were kind of avoiding the fight in this scenario with like your Captain Crunch, you kind of just hold the emotional frame of like just chill, and it kind of
what you do is you don't react at all,
right?
Most people who if they're at the pre-fight like right at the pre-fight stage, they are looking for provocation, right? They are looking for a reaction, and then they react against the reaction. So if you don't engage their reaction at all, if you totally ignore it, like when the guy, like I remember, I told him I had to eat like cereal or something. He's like, "You're a fucking idiot. Cereal has nothing to do with this." I didn't respond at all. I didn't change my facial expression. I was like, "You're right. Cinnamon Toast Crunch is the better cereal. I should have eaten that." Has nothing to do with what he just said, right? So he can't feed his rage on your response. So it short circuits the rage. It doesn't make them less mad in a way. It just short circuits it, and so they can't get in their rage escalation, and they can't fight you, unless the exception is they're fucking crazy person, like a homeless schizophrenic person who's got a knife. Talking's not going to work, dude, right? But that's like a very small percentage. I'm talking about a relatively normal, sane human. if you don't engage their emotion at all, like in any way, shape, or form, people don't know how to react to that. And so they kind of freeze up, and they like either move on, or a lot of ways you can if you're really skilled at this, you can calm people down. I've never been good at calming people down, but I've always been good at like it's almost like a neurological short circuit. I'm not exactly sure how it works in the brain. I forget the exact neurological process, but yeah, without a reaction, people can't continue their provocation.
Dude, that is fucking awesome. That just like pulled me right back to, because I read a lot about like a lot of Eckhart Tolle stuff, and the pain body inside us is this like kind of this pain we're holding in that kind of surfaces up, and when someone's looking for a fight, they, as you're saying, they want you to feed that reaction. They need, their pain body thrives on the reaction, and so if you don't give it to them, if you're just present and you remain unreactive, they can't do anything. They're like
unconsciously, they can't justify fighting someone who it's not that you're not fighting back, it's that you're not even engaging them on the level that they're engaging you. Then it's like they can't neurologically, it's almost impossible for them to fight you at that point. Yeah, it works amazingly well. You would be, and look, don't get me wrong, it's something that like it's hard to do, because when a big, huge, angry meathead is screaming in your face, it's hard to stay calm. Right, but that's actually where fighting comes in. Is I was totally calm because I was like, this dude is a fucking joke. Like I knew if I needed to, either I'm gonna drop him with one punch or I'm gonna choke him the fuck out, right? But I think he had friends there too. I can't remember. So it was like one of those things where it's like I don't want to do that because he might be trained too, and if he is, I might have a fight on my hands, man, that I might lose. Like I don't know. Like I remember getting the impression that he was not. Like I didn't have to worry, but I just remember thinking like all you have to do is just totally emotionally disengage and don't in any way respond to their emotional provocation, and just say things that are unrelated to what they're saying but still make sense. If you talk gibberish, then I don't know if it really works as well. It has to be real things that make sense but don't have anything to do with what they're saying. Yeah, it works. I've never seen it not work.
Yeah. I think like people that have grown up with brothers kind of get a strong glimpse of this, because if they look back to every time they got in fights with their brothers, it was just reaction, heating up. And sometimes when I was younger, where I would be like disgruntled and upset, and then my brothers would be in a really good mood, and I'd be like, ugh, and I'd be like freaking out, and they wouldn't give me that action. I'm like, okay, let's play video games.
Right, exactly right. You can learn how to do that yourself too. That's very Buddhist. It's not easy to do, but yeah, that's. If your readers who don't, or your listeners who don't want to train but want to know how to get out of fights, those are the two ways. You short circuit it before it even escalates, and if it escalates, don't engage their anger and talk about something else, but do it in sort of a way where you're having a conversation with them. It works really, really well. It's almost funny how much it works. Just make sure you can stay calm, because it's not easy to do.
Right, and I guess this same concept's probably a good way of dealing with police officers or authority figures, kind of to avoid getting into, because I've had friends that literally, maybe they got a little ticket for jaywalking or something small, and then they react to the officer, and all of a sudden they're like getting stripped in
jail. Right. Well, that's their own problem. Dealing with cops is very, very simple. I actually wrote a piece on this for the Huffington Post. They asked me. It's very simple. Like, cops basically code the world in two ways: criminal or citizen. You want to make sure they code you as citizen. If they think you're a criminal, they won't hesitate to fucking shoot you, which is exactly what happened in Ferguson, right? Regardless of what that poor kid did, and I have no idea what the facts of the situation are, right? The cop clearly felt like he was a criminal and felt justified in shooting him, right? And I guess the question is part of that because he's black or not? Yes, probably, because we live in America, and unfortunately that's just a reality, right? But the best way to deal with cops is if you fuck up, especially if you fuck up, don't expect them to be just. Don't expect the world to be fair. That's not the way the world works. The cop has a very singular perspective on the world. You need to understand his perspective. His perspective is, first, I need to be safe. Right? Because every cop knows another cop who's died. So they're all afraid that someone's going to kill them, right? Because they don't know who you are. You may know you're safe. They don't know that. So the first thing you have to do is make sure the cop knows that you're not a threat. The second thing you have to do is make sure the cop knows you're a citizen. So in the cop's mind, I'm not a criminal. I'm a citizen. I may have done something wrong, like I may have sped or I may have stole something, but I'm a citizen who's strayed a little bit. I'm not a criminal who's doing the things I always do. Because cops treat citizens and criminals totally differently. Okay? So if you establish that you're safe and you code as citizen, you're going to be great. And the way you code as citizen is obedience to the cop's authority. Like it or not, on the scene, the cop is God. He can do anything he wants. He can arrest you for literally no reason and take you in. And of course, they're going to have to let you go at some point, but he can fucking put you in cuffs right there. There's basically almost impossible legally to question a cop's authority at the scene, right? So what you have to make sure you do is be as obsequious as possible. Remember what we talked about at the beginning, what women don't find attractive? Act like that. Be a total fucking pussy, like a total subservient, passive, obsequious, but respectful still, like person to the cop. Yes, sir. No, sir. You're right. I shouldn't have done that. I'm really sorry. I don't know what I was thinking. Things like that work amazing. Then the cop calms down. He understands you're a citizen. He's like, it gives the cop the ability to grant you reprieval, which makes them feel powerful and triggers sort of the deep unconscious sort of meaning of why did they become a cop. They tell themselves they became a cop to serve and protect. Most people become cops because they want power, right? And so if you give them the ability to exercise their power in a way that they're allowed to do, then they're going to feel very powerful and they're going to let you off. Dude, I should have gone to jail like 50 fucking times in my life, and I've never, ever even been charged with anything serious because I understood this process.
That is perfect. That is perfect. And if you look at all the videos on YouTube that go down where people getting, by cops, they literally do one of two things. They either make the cop feel unsafe, and if you imagine you're a cop, literally it's almost a life and death situation every time you're dealing with someone new, because they can cut your throat or pull out a gun. And people don't respect that. It's like, be a cop for a fucking day and you'll know. And second of all, they just question their cop's authority over and over again. And, probably a good subset of those cops are not going to fucking take it.
But you're going to make the cop very angry. Again, I'm not arguing what's right or wrong, what's morally right or wrong. I'm telling you what the reality is, right? The reality is most cops, not all cops, but most cops became cops because they wanted power, right? And it's a way for a person to have power that's socially acceptable and actually does good for the world. Like if you're a good cop, you make the world a better place, right? So it's a way for someone who wants power to have power, but then to justify it in their head that they're not like a power-hungry person, they're actually serving the community, right? You're right. Almost all those videos on YouTube, people have their hand in their pocket, like shaped like a gun, and like, oh, this cop stopped me because I have my hand in my pocket. Well, it's like, dude, you're provoking him for your YouTube video, And it's like, there are awful cops out there, no doubt, right? But most of them really aren't that bad. And then, the rest, they're all like, well, why are you stopping me? They get all indignant and they go fucking nuts. And it's like, look, if you're trying to make a point for a YouTube video, that's the best way to act. If you're trying to actually get out of a situation, that's the worst way to act. The worst. Don't do that. Cops will fuck you up. I mean, just think about, would you like to deal with someone like that? Right or wrong? Forget the law for a second. Do you want to deal with an obnoxious fucking asshole? Of course not. Of course. How many people have you met in your life that you wanted to slap handcuffs on and hit with a nightstick? I've dealt with a lot of those people, right? Well, if you act like that to a cop, some of them may exercise not their rights, but their abilities. They have the ability to do that, right or wrong. Why get in that situation? It doesn't make sense. Unless you're trying to make a larger point about the role of police, et cetera, okay, then I get why you might do that, and that's a different discussion to have and a valid one. It's just on a day-to-day basis, that's not the right way to deal with cops.
Awesome, dude. This has been an absolute blast. And so just to kind of finish off, what are your main projects you're working on now? I know you're doing the Mating Grounds podcast.
Right. So the two things I'm doing right now that might really is only two things. Dr. Jeff Miller and I, who wrote Mating Mind, he's like one of the big evolutionary psychologists. We're kind of working on a book that the goal is to be sort of the definitive guide to sex and dating for young men, right? Something that can that combines real science and real authority with actionable, useful insights for young guys. That book should be out next year, maybe about this time next year. And then we have a podcast right now. It's called the Mating Grounds Podcast. Obviously, it's free. Any of your listeners can go download it. We do Q&A, and then we have like sort of instructional stuff. It's very good. It's a lot of stuff I've talked about here. It's very similar. And then I also started a new company called Book in a Box, and it's basically like we take people from idea to finish completed book in about 12 hours of their time. It's pretty expensive, but if you have a lot of money and not a lot of time, it's a great solution for you to get a book. I know so many people who want books that don't have the time to write them. We kind of came up with this really cool startup that has a process that takes people through. Just go to bookinabox.co if that sounds interesting, but for most people, it's either out of their price range or they don't care about writing a book.
Mm-hmm. All right, man. Well, everyone go check out Tucker Max on the Mating Grounds podcast, and I'll put all the links in the show notes. And thank you so much for your time. It was a pleasure to flesh this out with you.
Definitely. Nice talking to you, man.
Yeah.
All right, guys. I hope you enjoyed that podcast. Absolutely awesome stuff. And make sure to subscribe if you haven't already to the Road Trip podcast. We're going to be coming out with more awesome interviews and more great podcasts. And definitely the place that you want to go check out is Kinobody.com. That's where I'm writing all my articles and posting my videos and podcasts and all that stuff of that nature. And I have my courses there if you're looking to either get shredded, warrior shredding, if you're looking to build some muscle and get really strong. There's the Greek God program. And if you really want to get that big kind of Chris Hemsworth physique, well, I have my superhero program, which is more recent. Probably won't be doing many more programs because this stuff handles it all, and the reviews and testimonials have been kick-ass. And I am taking on some coaching clients. It's going to get pretty crazy in the new year, but there are a few spots. So if you want to do coaching, go to kinobody.com/coaching. That's it for now. Hope you enjoyed the podcast, and talk soon. Bye-bye.